Bell. It's November 1st, 2014. We've already passed one bicyclist on Highway 50 headed west, and it's a pretty rotten day. I mean, it's like windy, it's been raining, but here's a truck that's just kind of, he's pulling back out as we're coming up the road, but there's a lot of activity on this Highway 50, so it's not just the wild horses crossing the highway that people have to watch out for. It's we have a lot of bicyclists riding up and down, Highway 50. They go clear down the state on Highway 50. It's a very, very favorite trek for a lot of people to take, either on foot or on bicycles. And don't usually have quad riders ride on the shoulder, but it's certainly the pedestrians, the trekkers on foot, and also the bicycle riders. I think there's also quite a few like bicycle races. So just so people know, it's not just the wild horses that are in danger on this highway when the people who choose to operate a vehicle, whether you're on a motorcycle or a car or a truck or a semi, whatever, it's those of us that are people that are choosing to operate our vehicles that we really have to pay attention. You look down for just a moment and you can find yourself crossing over the center line, or if you don't watch the cars coming towards you on the 2-lane 65 mile per hour or 70 mile per hour plus highway, they can cross over the center line if you're not paying attention to them, and you have a head-on collision right at the center line, or they come into your lane. So it is certainly not just the wild horses. So at some point, and I'm a motorist myself. I mean, I've been driving since 1975 or something like that, maybe 74. I can't remember. I think it's like 39 years or something. Anyway, the point is that right now it's the wild horses, and yeah, they dash out of the darkness, but we have signs flashing warning people of that. But as I said, we have 2-lane, very, very fast highways here, at least 65 miles per hour. There's a speed limit sign right there. It's going to widen out to 4 here pretty soon, but it didn't for the longest time. This only widened out a few years back. So at what point do we have to put more of the responsibility on the motorists? Yes, I understand accidents happen, but if we're trying to pay attention, especially when we really, really, really know we need to, because there are signs warning us of things, because right now it's wild horses, but what happens when you look down for just a second, or you're trying to make your kids stop fighting in the back seat, or you're tuning your radio, or you're texting, or you're doing whatever. Look down for a second, and all of a sudden, if you're looking down just the right way, you can turn your steering wheel ever so slightly, and that's all it'll take in order to just take out a bicyclist on the side of the highway or somebody on foot. And we do have a lot of people trekking up and down the state of Nevada on Highway 50. I mean, it's a very, very busy corridor, and even though a large part of Highway 50 is called the loneliest highway in America, not quite so much, because progress and population is extending further and farther out into the desert. So I just, I'm not going to be aggressive with people, because heaven knows I'm a motorist too, and I tend to be an aggressive driver and kind of a lead foot. But I do know that, by paying attention and also a little bit of luck, I'm sure, and by the grace of God, I have never collided with a wild horse or a cow. I did clip a calf on the back end one time, and I was only going 45 because I knew the cows liked to cross there at night, and I know the cows also like to lay down on the asphalt sometimes, or they'd stop right in the middle of the highway during the day or after dark. So luckily I was only going 45, because that calf really wasn't moving when I came around the corner on the highway, which was a 65 mile per hour highway. I was only going 45, so I was able to turn enough. There was no oncoming cars from the other direction, so I was able to turn enough and I barely tapped him on his haunches. But I went up the highway a little ways, turned around, made a U-turn, came back, and checked him out, and I saw him walking just fine up the hill. So, but if I'd been going 65, there were several of them, and they weren't moving very fast across the highway. I would have plowed right into them, so there would have been no doubt in my mind I would have creamed him. Yeah, so, at what point, I'm not going to aggressively point the finger at anyone, though. I think aggressively pointing the finger at anyone, whether they're maybe with the wild horses, if they're intentionally feeding them, then people need to be spoken to and just kind of spoken to about it. And if they have a FU attitude, then in which case, and they're doing it on purpose, we know we're doing, then at that point, when you've been trying to be reasonable and they just say, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, then okay, then I guess all bets are off, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen in terms of them getting in trouble. However, this is an open range state. It's called a fence-out state. So many people that do have, livestock like cattle and sheep and whatever. However, a lot of people have horses. There are a lot of unfenced properties out here because we have larger acreage. They're not, some of them are, a lot of them here, I'm in Stagecoach right now. They're quite a few 1-acre properties. However, there are quite a few that range, like there's one we just passed for sale back there. It's like, I think it says it's like 38 acres or something. So we have all different sizes, but the bigger the property gets, maybe less of a chance that somebody's going to take the expense of fencing the whole thing. They may string barbed wire, but a lot of people, they don't really want to do the barbed wire thing. It's ugly, it's not totally safe, and wild horses have been known to get tangled up in it. You put your horses out in it, your domestics, and then if the wild horses come around and start kind of flirting with your mares or whatever, and they're pawing, they strike at each other and squeal and back up and kick or whatever, you're going to have injuries to your domestic horses, and also wild horses are going to get injured as well. So a lot of people don't do the barbed wire thing out here on the smaller acreage. They just actually won't do anything at all. They'll have their horses in pipe panels or no climb or whatever, but they don't have full perimeter fencing. So there's a big difference between intentionally feeding and watering and unintentionally. But by being aggressive to people that are unintentionally feeding, that doesn't score any points with a lot of people, because they'll get defensive and they'll feel bullied, and then they'll say, who the hell do you think you are? And you know what? And they'll actually, I've gotten a few PMs recently from people that feel like they're being stalked, that all of a sudden people appear when the wild horses are passing through their yard over here in Stagecoach, quite a distance away from the highway. The horses are just passing through and browsing, as they do. They're nibbling off the ground, eating trees, whatever. But these people, a couple people had PM'd me and said, what should they do? Because they feel like they're being targeted, and they have people driving by their house taking photos, and rather than get in trouble with the state, they're getting ready to call the Department of Ag and have them come pick up horses, because they don't like being stalked and they don't like being targeted, because they're not doing anything wrong. They're not these people that are feeding on purpose or watering. The horses are just passing through their yard, as they do with any. They even go on to, these horses go on to yards if the gate's open, and people should be allowed to leave their gate open if they want to. They go on the yard, but then they go back out. But some people, rather than just turn the horses in, though, to the Department of Ag and say, come pick them up because we feel like we're being stalked by people. Luckily, a couple of them did PM me. So people out here I think we're running at 50-50 on people loving the wild horses or liking them a lot, and then people that are indifferent, and then some people downright don't like them. So I don't think we should be giving people any excuses that even though they like the wild horses, and they like the wild horses or maybe even love them, if it comes down to a choice between them getting in trouble with the state and having the wild horses on their property, they're going to have to choose to protect their family and not get in trouble with the state of Nevada. So, I just think there's gentler, easier ways to approach people about things, and attacking people is certainly just not a way to unify people and get them to go along with what you want them to go along with. So anyway, now I'm over in Dayton where I don't know, I might drive down to the site of the accident the other day, because we have horses. I mean, Dayton's gotten a lot more populated. This is actually considered Mark Twain area. We see tract homes over there being built. They started building them again. There's my dog Harvey. He's just watching. Anyway, they started building again because the economy is picking up a little bit. So those houses apparently are selling again now. So, but then we have some older properties here. A lot of these over here are on 1 acre. The older ones, and then the subdivisions, of course, are not. They're much smaller, but the horses wander through the subdivisions and through these older properties. The horses pretty much wander, and so we're 4 lanes here, but I think it was about 4 days ago now, at about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll drive up to that point so people can see it as long as my batteries hold out here on my camera. It was on a weekday. School buses out, people going to work, pretty well lit, I guess, because there's a Maverick gas station there and street lights, I think, on all 4 corners because the road goes across, and somebody hit a big buckskin mare. Chances are she was pregnant, not positively, but chances are she was pregnant. So, and I guess she sounds like she bled out on the highway because there was a lot of blood. So we'll just drive up. I'm actually going to the feed store over here, but I'll just pass them for a second here and drive up to the Maverick. Hopefully they've actually washed the blood stains off the asphalt, but I know somebody that went by not long after the accident, and they said the blood was still like wet, and it was everywhere. It was just everywhere. So even in these areas here, now there could have been people over on either side of the highway in the subdivisions watering. Certainly maybe watering horses, or the horses could just be eating their lawns. And that's not considered feeding the horses if it's eating a lawn, because that's their lawn. And if they don't want the horse eating their lawn, they have to fence them out. So a lot of people, once again, they don't. So but there may be some question of water was put out, in which case then knowing that I think certainly, well, I don't think people I don't think the general public pays as much attention to these issues of the Mustangs as many people think they do, since so many of us are really, really, really involved. We just think that a lot of people are paying attention to this, and funny enough, I talk to people around these parts all the time that live in the subdivisions, and they go, really? That's illegal to feed them or what? And I go, yeah, it really is. And they don't even know it because they're not as interested in this issue as we are. We're coming up on the Maverick gas station on the right-hand side here. You can see we're at 4 lanes. We've got street lights here, though. See, street lights out in Stagecoach and Silver Springs, we don't, for the most part. But here we do. Yeah. See, so we've got street lights on. Wow, got 3 street lights. Yeah. See, we have 1, 2. Yeah, we have 3. So this was apparently pretty well lit. The Maverick gas station sign puts out a lot of light. They're open 24 hours. So I'm just going to turn onto the side street. This is Riverboat, where it happened. Now, I don't see a lot of blood in the highway, so maybe they washed it down. I'm turning onto Riverboat. Yeah, and you can see, everybody can see. See, these are, the wild horses wander through these streets. See, you'd think it's all rural out here, but it's really not. I think people have misconceptions about, if we have wild horses, it must be all rural and properties, bigger properties. It's just obviously it's not, as everyone can see. See, this is a subdivision. Horses go, you know, coming right down the streets and stuff. And once again, you know, at what point does it become the responsibility of the drivers? Because, you know, this time at Riverboat and the highway, it was a wild horse that tragically died. The people didn't, so that's good. I mean, I'm not going to wish any harm on them. However, a wild horse died, but when is the next time it's going to be a kid or somebody on a bicycle or whoever? So the point is that as operators of vehicles, at what point do we have to take responsibility for the operation of that vehicle and making sure we pay attention? I just don't even go fast through this corridor, beginning way over in Carson City, going through Mound House, which is only 45 miles per hour. Then it goes past the Smith's Market in Dayton, 45 miles per hour. And then it bumps up to 60 miles per hour, 55 and then 60. I don't even go 60 down this corridor on 4 lanes anymore either. It just doesn't make sense to me to do that, because unless it's a matter of life and death that I got to get somewhere, it could be a matter of life and death that I decided to be in a big hurry and not pay attention, even though I didn't need to get anywhere, 2 minutes faster, or I didn't need to tune my radio, or I didn't need to answer my phone, or I didn't need to be texting, or whatever. So I'm not trying to be a jerk, but at what point do we as operators of vehicles just, I used to have a commercial license. I've hauled horses, I've hauled up to 8-horse trailers, and basically I just don't understand. I do think part of it is definitely luck. I mean, I do think that some of it, hey, just maybe you stopped to pick up something off the ground as you were leaving your house and you're annoyed because you had to do a few things before you left your house, but maybe that was just the difference between you being on the road 2 minutes sooner and having a little meeting with destiny of being in an accident. I don't know. I often do think about that. So I think that, that plays a part. But also paying attention, not being distracted, realizing that ultimately we have a huge responsibility when we're operating a vehicle. And even if all the wild horses were gone, we're still an open range state. There's still going to be cattle. There's still going to be coyotes. There's still going to be bears in certain areas over like in Gardnerville. And then there's always going to be people. It's a beautiful area. There's always going to be people riding bicycles on the side of the highway. And we always have pedestrian trekkers going up and down the highways of Nevada. We do. So right now, hey, maybe it's animals, but even having every single wild horse taken off the wild, which is not what should happen at all. And if we could just work together, advocates working together to gently educate the public, but also getting along with one another, I just think that really, good things could happen for the wild horses. However, that's getting off the subject here. But I'm just trying to let people know, let's just take more responsibility for our operating of a vehicle, no matter what the vehicle is. Doesn't matter if you're in a truck like I am, which I probably wouldn't get injured if I hit a wild horse because I'm in a 1-ton dually. But however, it doesn't matter that I'm in that. No matter what you're driving, it's just important to pay attention. See, there's somebody going down with a horse trailer, but I can tell they're not even going 60. The speed limit's 60. I can tell they're not going 60. They're just kind of not in a huge hurry to get wherever they're going. So anyway, it's Laura Bell, November 1st, 2014, and just arriving at the good feed store here, and I will post this on YouTube.